This is the Grind to Greatness podcast, your dose of unapologetic tough love. These are your hosts, Mary Hodges and Ashley Kane.
Welcome to the Grind to Greatness podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Mary Hodges here, and I'm with my co-host, Ashley Kane. We talk a lot about what content we want to deliver to our audience. And today we're going to be talking about a interesting subject that pretty much affects every single one of us, and that's willpower. We wanted to talk about this because willpower is something that's really misunderstood by people. In the basic sense, willpower is just, your resistance or your ability to resist temptations, short-term temptations for long-term gains. And it's something interesting we found is that 27% of people report that willpower or the lack of willpower is their biggest barrier to change. So this is something that, is a challenge for a lot of people if they have something in their life they want to change. Willpower seems to be getting in the way. The good news is that there's a lot of science behind it that we're going to share with you on the episode today. And there's some ways that we can share with you where you can actually become better at managing your willpower. So what I want to do is kick off a little discussion between Ashley and I here. And we're going to share with you some things in our own personal life that we struggle with when it comes to willpower. So Ashley, what do you if there's one thing that what you either want to do or you don't, or you want to stop doing, what's that biggest challenge for you when it comes to willpower?
The biggest challenge for me has really it's got to be not hitting the alarm clock. Just hitting snooze. And I think a lot of people have been talking about that. I know I've talked about it with a couple different friends, and it seems to be a pretty chronic disease. I think someone posted about it on Facebook. I can't remember if it was a meme or what it was. And a lot of people were talking about on your iPhone, you have all these alarms set 6, 6:15, 6:45, 7, 8, and then you finally get up at 8:30 or something like that. So for me, it's just popping out of bed. I think that would be one of the solutions. But it's something I've always struggled with. And I think it's because how some parents will turn the lights on and throw the covers off and your ass is up. But it wasn't like that for me. It was just oh, come on, get up. And, you kind of drag and you don't want to get up. You roll over. So I think it stems from that. And that's a vice of mine. Huge.
That's a vice of many people. And we can dedicate an entire episode to that. And we may just do that. For me, I don't have an issue with the alarm clock. I usually, if the alarm goes off, I get right out of bed. But sometimes I do experiment with no alarm clock, and that, that's not really a pop out of bed. That's just get up when I feel like it kind of thing. So it might be similar there. Mine is getting into the habit of working out in the morning. I would love to be one of those people that just gets my workout in first thing. I know all the science says it gives you energy throughout the day. It helps you focus. But for some reason, I just struggle being a person that works out in the morning. I can work out in the morning on the weekend, but during the week, it's I wake up and I have my morning routine that does not involve me working out. And there's just something about working out in the morning that I struggle with. I try to, but I just struggle with that. So I usually I'm somebody that works out in the evening. But there's a part of me that just really wishes I would work out in the morning and just get it over with.
Yeah, I remember where the Facebook post was from. It was actually from the Grind to Greatness Facebook website or Facebook page. And I think Mary had posted something do you hit the alarm clock, or are you the type of person that pops right up out of bed? Because I really do think there's two kinds of people. And it was so interesting, all the people that were showing their iPhone alarms and all the people that were saying, they actually do pop right out of bed. And I know both kinds of people. And it is really a fascinating thing. I think it comes from a deeper sense of urgency. I think that is part of it too. And I think that this willpower thing is the root of all self-development strategies, talks, or discussions. It's really at the cause of everything. And one of the things that I find becomes a challenge for more and more people, especially people that are in like millennial and then like generation, X, because, we're all on cell phones pretty regularly and probably most of the day have our head down in a cell phone. So I think there's so many distractions. You get a notification, it sends that dopamine, and, you check Instagram or you go on Snapchat or whatever, and the interaction is great, but I think the distractions is what can maybe drag you away from your willpower focus. And it's something that, baby boomers didn't have to go through.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to get into some science behind that. So I think definitely the culture that we're in, the distraction culture, the instant gratification culture, that makes it even more difficult for people to continually exercise willpower when they're in a habit of just constantly allowing in distraction. So we have three different theories here that we've kind of discovered in our research about willpower and the science behind that. The first thing that we discovered is this thing called the hot and cold framework. Either you're somebody that, you call it the cold framework, where you take a little bit more time to make decisions, you think about consequences, you show a little bit more self-control. If you're in the hot framework, you are impulsive and you make decisions based on emotions. And I like how this theory was discovered. It was from this little marshmallow test that they did with preschoolers, where they put a tray of marshmallows in a room, and the researcher said, I'm going to be back in a couple minutes. When I come back, you guys can all have 2 marshmallows. If you can't wait for a marshmallow and you ring the bell and I come back before that, then you can only have 1 marshmallow. So it was this test on to see how these 5-year-olds could wait for a marshmallow. Could they wait and have 2, or could they not wait and just have 1? And the interesting thing about the research found that, the kids who couldn't wait and had 1 marshmallow versus the kids who, exhibited some type of self-control, when they went and found these people later on in life and kind of tracked their progress as teenagers and as adults, they found that impulsive behavior really didn't change very much. So this was something that is kind of rooted in their childhood, whether or not it was how they were raised or certain habits they had as a child growing up, that kind of followed them throughout life, which I thought was really, really interesting. Do you have any thoughts about that, Ashley?
I really think it's about mentality. Of course, it comes from how you were raised to a sense, but I think it's your chemical wiring. You know what I mean? Which comes, some part, of course, from your genealogy and, of course, your environment. But I think that's a huge part of it that, you could research probably for days and days.
Okay, so the hot-cold framework is one theory. The next idea and theory behind willpower is called willpower depletion. And what science shows us is that, we're making decisions and we're using our willpower consistently throughout the day. And the more we use it, the more, it's like exercise. The more you exercise, the more tired you get, the more fatigued you get. And it's the same thing with willpower. So whether or not you're fighting your willpower to scroll through Facebook or watch cat videos during work or not curse out your coworker that's annoying, whatever the case may be, you're consistently using your willpower in little ways. And so that can fatigue you. So by the end of the day, if you don't find a way to restore your willpower, which we'll talk about later, you're more likely to really fall victim to that willpower or the lack of willpower as the day goes on. So they say that willpower is like a muscle. You have to exercise it. So the more you exercise it, the short-term, you're going to have short-term fatigue, but you're going to have long-term gains. It's going to be easier to use your willpower as time goes on.
Right. I think a lot of people can relate that to food. It could be like resisting, a Twinkie or resisting a candy bar or resisting, something that maybe you've kind of limited yourself from. Yeah,
it would be, when it comes to food, it'd be kind of interesting to see if there's any science out there or any studies out there that show that people make, worse food choices towards the end of the day. If that has to do a lot with willpower depletion.
I think it does, because you're tired at the end of the day. That's why if you see a lot of people who meal prep, you're not really having to think about those decisions. So that's something that you're not using your energy on. You use your energy on it to prepare it, but it's not something that you have to think about, like, what am I going to eat tonight? Do I have to go by the grocery store, which is more and more energy used. So I think it's about, I know everyone's heard, work smart, not hard, but I think that goes along with willpower too.
So the next kind of theory behind this is super interesting to me. And it's the idea of our fast thinking versus slow thinking systems. And I had learned about this, last year and just was totally fascinated by it. Our fast thinking is the thinking system that we have with our brain that literally processes millions of data points, has associations from our entire life that only some of them reach our consciousness. So our reality is essentially, built on, or our perception of reality is just that, it's a perception. That's why two people can stand outside and one person says, oh, it feels so great outside. And another person says it's hot as hell. Right. Our reality and our perception of reality is different for everybody based on your associations. So what slow thinking is like, where you actually analyze, you plan. The interesting thing about the difference between these two is that, what I learned is that the thought that, you can use your willpower to try harder is just basically wrong, because your world is shaped by your fast thinking long before your willpower ever even gets the information. So fast thinking is basically like on autopilot on the things that you don't even realize about your day. It's just built into your system. Which is kind of a relief in a way when you know that, because really ultimately why willpower is so important is because when people feel that they don't have willpower, when they consistently make choices that are not in line with really their goals, or they constantly have that piece of cake when they say they're not supposed to, or they constantly stay home when they tell themselves they want to go to the gym, and they constantly don't make the best choices, it literally chips away at our confidence. And the more you make those choices, the less confident you become, the more likely you are to continue making those choices. So it's like a vicious cycle here. And why this is so important, why it was like a relief when I learned that, it was like, oh, wait a minute. So I don't just suck. There's all this science. Right. There's all this science behind it that explains like why it's so difficult for me to do these things when I say this is what I want to do and I'm not following through. So the fact that there is this thing called fast thinking that really is built our associations, that has a huge impact on how we operate day in and day out. It's a bit of relief, that we all just don't suck at making good decisions. You know what I mean? So, that was a nice epiphany for me to learn, you know?
Yeah. I think for me, I know once I get on a roll, it's easier to actually do those things. Like if I get on a roll where I'm going to the gym, 4 days in a row, maybe I'll take a day off and then I'll go back those other, 2 days of the week and then go right into my 3 or 4 day stretch of going. It's like it almost excites you that you're doing so good. You gain confidence instead of going backwards and losing the confidence. Because just think, you go 3 days in a row and then you take your rest day or whatever, and then you end up skipping 2. I mean, just think about how bad you feel. Or say you're doing really good with, just eating clean. And if that's what you want to do, I'm just using examples, of course. So then you fall back and you end up, like you had said earlier, eating that donut that the coworker brought in, or you're really hungry and you didn't have a chance to grab breakfast. So you stop by somewhere and you get something you normally wouldn't get based on not being prepared. I think that's where we start to backslide and take baby steps back, when those are the times that we have to really, to be excellent and to be good at anything, you have to prepare. And I know that is a challenge that I'm just kind of realizing as we're talking here, because, you might get your planner out and put everything down that you need to do, but then you don't open up your planner. Like, what good is that? So just coming to self-realizations and being mature enough to do that, I think you've gotten over half the battle.
Yeah, so let's talk about like now that we know that there's some science behind willpower, what are some things that people can do to improve how they use their willpower for their benefit? One thing I like to talk about is built-in accountability systems. And that's just a way to make it harder to resist make it easier to resist the temptation that is in front of you. And so a built-in kind of accountability system is something that makes it easier for you to succeed, harder for you to fail. So we've been talking about fitness and food a lot this episode.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep along with those analogies. So if you're one of those people that says, okay, I'm going to get up and go to the gym in the morning, what's a built-in accountability system that you can plan around your life to make it easier to make that decision? One thing that people like to do is they set their alarm away from them. So they're forced to get out of bed to turn it off. And then they have their gym clothes and everything ready to go right then and there. So all they have to do is throw their clothes on and walk out the door. That's one thing. Maybe you're somebody that wants to drink more water during the day. Well, how can you set it up to where you're going to be more likely to do that? Maybe it's you literally have 7 bottles sitting around your house in the places that you're going to be most, or sitting at work, or you just make it easy to grab instead of grabbing a soda or grabbing something else. So think about the areas in life where you struggle, and think about what types of built-in accountability systems you can use. Are there any that you've tried that you use, Ashley?
Well, when you said the water thing, in my own head, I was thinking like, oh yeah, like I went and got a cute Starbucks cup, and then I started putting like limes in my water. So, well, first it gives you alkaline, which that's a whole other lesson. But the other reason is because it makes it flavorful. And like, who wants to just drink plain, boring water? And then as you drink more water and how healthy you feel, I think, once you kind of get over the hump of the soda cravings, you're golden. You just have to make water interesting.
Yeah, so that's a good piece of advice there for sure for people that struggle drinking water. There's a lot. I could drink water by itself all day long. I mean, I'm strange, but a lot of people definitely have that problem when it comes to water. One thing that I would do, I have vitamins that I take, and they're, I have to set an alarm to remind myself to take them. And not only do I have to set an alarm, I have to put the nighttime vitamin by my bathroom sink. So when I'm brushing my teeth at night, they're right there. Because otherwise, even when the alarm comes, I would forget. So that's one thing that I would do to kind of make it, easier for me to do something that I know I need to do.
Well, it goes back to preparation. That's kind of what I'm thinking as we're talking here. Like, set yourself up for success. Make yourself do the things that you don't feel like doing, like preparing your lunch so you don't have to do it in the morning, making your gym bag up so you don't have to make it up when you wake up at the crack, or,
the crack, I like that.
Yeah, maybe like, who wants to get up at 5 and go to the gym? I know I don't. Or it could be maybe getting the kids' lunches ready before school. I mean, and it's all about preparation. It could be so many little things that we just negate that could make our lives easier in the long run.
So since we're on the topic of exercise here, one thing that was really awesome that I found in research about willpower was that there was a study that showed that if you're using your willpower to regularly exercise, because a lot of people need to use willpower to get to the gym and to work out. That's just the way it is. A lot of people just don't like to go to the gym. So they have to use their willpower to be physically fit. If you're exercising your willpower in that way for your fitness and for your health, the research found that it led to better willpower in nearly all other areas of your life. And to me, that's completely fascinating. So if you could literally change that one piece where if you knew you could exercise willpower, because willpower is like a muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets over time. And like we talked about with fatigue, if you're using it constantly and you feel fatigued, you're going to wear out by the end of the day. But the more you're consistently using it to your advantage over the course of time, you're going to be better at it. So if you could literally focus on using your willpower for exercise, you're going to be more likely to use it in a good way in other areas.
So obviously we're talking a lot about fitness and food because most people can relate to it, but I kind of want to know how you guys are feeling about the topics of where you struggle at. So, drop something on the Facebook page or go to the website and check that stuff out, because we want to hear what you guys kind of struggle with, because I'm sure there's one or more people out there who can relate to maybe starting a routine or getting in the habit of doing something all the time.
Yeah. And another thing too, which I don't know why we just consistently are keep going back to food, but that's just what the research is showing. When it comes to willpower depletion, what some research found is that this is tied to your glucose levels. So if you're eating regularly and you're able to maintain blood sugar, good blood sugar levels in your brain, this could also help with your willpower depletion. So when you're starting to feel depleted, you can actually use food as a fuel to kind of re-energize that willpower. So that's pretty interesting information to me. And then another thing too, don't try to exercise willpower on like a lot of major things in your life at once. If you're one of those people that is trying to stop smoking, you're trying to, start a new project that, may have income goals, you're trying to go to the gym, eat better, and you're trying to do all these things at once, you're going to be experiencing some pretty serious willpower depletion. So use it to your advantage. Now that you know this about willpower, what's that one thing that you can do to use willpower to your advantage? So, once you become good at that one thing, once it becomes a habit, now you can incorporate something new into your life that you can start focusing your willpower on. And I think this brings us to a discussion about the 5-second rule, which I know we've talked about this before. Ashley and I just love this book. It's by Mel Robbins, and it really, really tackles the issue of, it gives you a really simple solution on how you can forget motivation, how you can just go right into willpower. And when you feel like doing something, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just move your body into physical action before your brain starts to talk yourself out of it.
Yeah. I mean, your brain is actually designed to protect itself. So it doesn't want to do the things that are scary. It doesn't want to do the things that are challenging or hard. And, maybe not everyone's wired this way, but there's something inside of you, even if you're a star athlete, or if there's, even if you're, super successful business person, or you're, a celebrity or whatever the case, or maybe you're just really happy with what you do. There's got to be some area that you can point to that shows, that you want to improve and that you want to start a habit of. So the brain is meant to protect us, to stop us from doing things that are scary, like I said. So you have kind of two modes, and it's kind of goes back to the fast thinking theory. So you have a mode when Mel Robbins calls like your autopilot. That's your perceptive reality. That's where you're driving to work and you don't even know how you got there. That's the way that you perceive a color when you see it. That's the way that you perceive, things that you may see in everyday life. And then the other part is autopilot. That's like the oh shit handle. Like when you stop and you either decide to do something new out of your comfort zone or revert back. Like say you see someone across the room, and we've all had this experience where you want to go talk to them, but then within about 5 seconds, your brain tells you not to. That's one example. You can put the 5-second rule into place besides just getting up in the morning. There's so many things we can incorporate this into.
Yeah. So the idea behind that is that it's like, what Ashley said, just to reiterate, you have basically 5 seconds before, when you get a natural instinct to do something, you have 5 seconds before you start to revert back to your old ways, talk yourself out of it, tell yourself why you're not good enough to go up to that person and talk to them, etc., whatever the case may be. Whereas as soon as you get that instinct, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move. So, the interesting thing was when I was reading the 5-second rule, I had, literally I had an instinct to go work out. And I said, you know what? I'm closing the book. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I got out of my bed, put my clothes on, and went to the gym because I knew that if I started it's talking about, well, I'm really enjoying this 5-second rule book. I want to keep reading, blah, 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 blah. I'm too tired. I like laying in my bed. It feels great. I don't get to rest ever, blah, blah, blah. I could, easily talk myself out of going to the gym. And so it was just funny that I was reading the 5-second rule book, learned the concept, and had to close the book in the middle of it and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to myself to the gym. And so it's, this is something that you can use in your everyday life to help you exercise some willpower.
Okay, so these are some takeaway items, some action items. Successful people understand the importance of an effective strategy. They regularly evaluate and then they reevaluate their own strategies, and that produces a consistent result. So making sure you develop the right strategy involves taking a look at the system in place. So first question to yourself, what are you currently doing? Pause for reflection. Second thing is what you're doing now getting you to your goals? Is what you're doing now working? And then the third part is what isn't working? So once you understand what needs to change, accepting it is the first step. You can begin to determine what you will do and what steps you can take to get you where you want to be. What is one area that you can practice exercising your willpower muscle and retraining your associations? And then the other thing too is what new associations or beliefs can you develop? How can you work on this area? And then what built-in systems for accountability can you develop around this behavior to make it easier to succeed?
All right, so Ashley left you with some really good takeaways there. If you could pick that one thing. And like we said earlier, if you can center it around exercise, that will be able to impact your willpower in other areas. If not, center it around what's most important to you now. If last week you were on the episode, we directed you to thegrindtogreatness.com to get our Life Designer Toolkit. This is also something that you can use for this exercise too. Once you start to answer those questions about, where you are in your life, what's your current state, where do you want to go, what are your goals, you can start to think about what area of willpower is kind of holding you back. And what's that one area that if you focused on working for the next 30 days, that could make a huge impact. So definitely rely on that Life Designer Toolkit. You can get it at thegrindtogreatness.com. Once you go through those exercises, it'll give you a lot more clarity on maybe what is the important area for you to focus on here. So that's going to wrap up our episode. We really thank you guys for taking the time to tune in and share your willpower stories with us. We want to hear them. We want to hear your breakthroughs. We want to hear about your successes and even share sometimes that you've stumbled and fallen, because to be honest, that's what the reality is for a lot of us. And, if we know there's other people out there that have similar struggles to us, it makes it a little easier to kind of go through life to know that, I don't have to be perfect. I can screw up. Other people are out there screwing up. So share your successes and failures. Reach out to us at thegrindtogreatness.com. Join our Facebook group. There's instructions for how to do that on our website. We would love to have you involved in the everyday conversation of, turning your average into awesome. And thank you guys.
Peace.